I think it counts as your first appearance on my channel. It's like, we're very Dolly Parton and Carl, you know what I'm saying? I called my husband to my lair so that I could explain to him what's going on with Taylor Swift's new album. She released her 13th studio album. It's called The Life of a Showgirl. She released it on October 3rd. And the internet has extreme thoughts and feelings about it, but it's not the way you think it is, because anyone listening should know that my husband is both a musician and does not care about Taylor Swift. So I'm sure that you thought it's going to be just like a pop album. Everyone loves it, fanfare per usual. But actually, most people hate it. And the criticism was expansive. So I'm going to walk you through it because I know you want to be a part of pop culture. And I have some supporting evidence in the form of Instagram Reels to prove my case. So you ready? Okay. Okay, so Taylor Swift released The Life of a Showgirl. Comes out at midnight. People listen to it like crazy. And I would say it's almost an across-the-board miss, except for what we will call the Swifties, which I know that's the term people use for like all of her fandom, but I think you know what I mean because I've made you listen to albums or I've shown you this stuff before. Like, totally. The Swiftie is someone who is searching every music video for every Easter egg. They're the ones that make those charts when she was on the Eras tour that's like, well, she wore this top and this skirt and that means that this and this could be an indication that, like, as you know, I'm a casual observer. I went to the Eras tour, you know, I listen to an album, I call my friends and talk about lyrics once in a while, but I didn't wear a diaper. That's true. I didn't do that. No, I grew up. She's like the pop star of my generation, so I like keep tabs, but I don't even like all of her. Is that the baby? I don't even like all of her albums even. Like it's casual for me. But the Swifties are still defending this album. Most of the internet thinks it was a complete flop. This album is interesting, and I'm telling you this because you're a music guy, because she produced it with Shellback and what's his name? No, that's the thing. She normally produces with Jack Antoff. She has for a bunch of her albums, but she went back to, oh gosh, I have to pull up this tab. Shellback and Max, it's coming to me. Man, it's going to be a... Yes, thank you, Max Martin, who she produced 1989, like she worked on with 1989. And 1989, I would argue, was sort of like peak Taylor Swift popdom. She's still pretty big, but in terms of like natural, organic, yes, I believe 22. And Shake It Off, I think, is on 1989. And I think Wildest Dream is on 1989. There's someone in the comments who can be like, that's on Red or a different one. But like early, she was in her 20s. She took some time off. Jack Antoff. Okay, so the criticism of The Life of the Showgirl, I think, here's my theory, comes down to basically three categories. There's like musical criticism, which I think is totally normal and it's sort of where I would put myself. I'm going to play you a video in a second to back this up. But it was like, I listened to the album, me and our child listened to the album, and nothing really stood out to me. I didn't really like the lyrics. Some of them were okay, but it was just like, all of it kind of sounded the same. And not in like, oh, she's really got a style going, in like this is not creative enough. And for me personally, I think that's because she apparently was writing and like recording it when she was on the European leg of her big Eras tour. So she had already gone through the US, and then she was doing other countries. She went to Europe, and she would fly to Sweden in between shows. And I mean, you're creative, I'm creative. When you're trying to do two really big things at once, I think sometimes you just don't have the creative energy for it. So she would like, I guess, like do a show, fly to Sweden, like go whatever. And to me, it's why it feels kind of unfinished or rushed, or maybe like it lacks the direct focus. Showgirl album, the one that just came out. To me, some of her best work was Folklore and Evermore, which she produced during the pandemic when there was nothing else to do. So I think that's where this broke down. So my theory is there's musical criticism. Like I said, that's the camp I'm in. But then, because it got so deranged, there is basically like, I hate Taylor Swift criticism. And then there is like, over reading politics into everything this girl does criticism. And it seems to get just too deranged. Like, it's like everyone is taking out every crime they think she could have ever committed and been like, and that's the problem with this song. It's crazy. I'll show you some examples. So let me give you an example of a musical criticism first.
Swift promised Showgirl to be her big return to pop music, and given that she came from Tortured Poets department, she's pretty much made good on that. Ophelia is the most immediate radio-ready single she's released perhaps since Shake It Off, and Swift certainly feels freed from the dark clouds that surrounded the Tortured Poets department. The biggest surprise is despite its big return to pop, it's not crazy dissimilar to her last few records, particularly Midnights. Now, however, reunited with Max Martin and Shellback, she finds the fun again, particularly on groovier tracks like Wood and Opalite. Some wondered whether this would be 1989 Part 2, but it's closer to 1979. 70s guitars, Fleetwood Mac-esque, at times meet ABBA-like disco tinges. The synth pop Martin has largely traded in on his last few records with artists like Ariana Grande and The Weeknd is basically gone here. Surprisingly, it's replaced by something that feels much more Jack Antonoff. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The production falls down when it gets a little sludgy on songs like Elizabeth Taylor, Cancelled, and Actually Romantic. Which leads me to another point. My least favorite Swiftian trope is when she reduces situations to a fairy tale meets high school drama. Cancelled and Actually Romantic both fall into this, replacing two genuinely fascinating explorations with petty, simplified lyricism that you're left wondering where the nuance of the artist who wrote This Is Me Trying or Mad Woman is. She's kept the lucid songwriting that she's been working with since Folklore, but gone back to some of the tropes she left behind. Instead of picking up the sharpness of Blank Space or the maturity of Call It What You Want though, she's instead picked up Me and This Is Why You Can't Have Nice Things. Those two lyrical stylings clash and at their worst leave us with terrible lyrics like Girl Boss Too Close to the Sun. At its best, we get lines like this. It's slick and entertaining always, but what's differentiating her right now from her peers who have reached similar peaks is her slower sonic progression. Folklore was a propeller, but since that, it feels like sounds have been recycled so much that the shine has worn off. That's a problem that was blamed largely on Jack Antonoff on Tortured Poets department, but as Showgirl finds itself showing similar signs of stunted growth, the blame needs to be pointed elsewhere.
See, I'll pause here and say I did not play the album for my husband before this, even though our producer's joining us. Even though I'd like to play you the songs and get your opinion, just because I think you have an interesting style, I didn't do that intentionally because it's almost like the album and what's actually on it is starting to exist to me separately from like the online freak out that came with it. So one of the big criticisms of Taylor Swift is that she is basically in a form of arrested development, meaning like she's 35, she's engaged now. I know everyone is like, she can only write songs when she's sad, but basically they're like she has nothing to talk about, she's happy and she never grew up, that's it, this is the end of her career. And I don't think it's the end of her career. I don't think this was a good album, but I think that she's immature and out of touch is something that you're seeing a lot of. So I want to play some of those ones. You asked me why can't she just release a single, why does it always have an album? I think it has to be an album because it's part of this crazy world that she's in. Fans will start noticing that she's about to release something new because the colors on her Instagram change. Because she's like seen doing paparazzi walks wearing more plaid. Like this Easter egg hinting clue thing is so woven into the intensity of her fandom that it's not just like, oh, here's a one-off project I did. It's like, here's the world. And again, I'm going to go back to Folklore and Evermore, which she just dropped out of nowhere during COVID because she was like, I had time and I wrote these albums. And again, I thought that they were better than the stuff that she's produced lately, especially Life of the Showgirl, because she is a product in a lot of ways. So it's interesting. So here's one of the criticisms that I saw that I thought was kind of replicated in a lot of places.
development. You know, Taylor Swift came on the scene when she was a teenager, and she really hit fame in her early 20s. And I think this can happen with young stars. We do this to child stars, where the age that persona comes out as is the age that we kind of always see them as. I think it's a reason child stars have a hard time finding roles as they grow older, because we as an audience just always want to see them as a certain age. And because Taylor Swift, both her style and kind of her songwriting, I'm sure the Swifties will disagree, for me anyway, it has always stayed in the realm of believable, of a teenager or a high school student or a young 20-something would write these lyrics. Whether you think her lyrics are good or not, that's not what I'm here to argue. What I am saying is that they are believable, that a certain age would have written those lyrics. Her style has stayed relatively the same as well, I think on purpose. I think that Taylor Swift is a marketing genius in that she always wants to seem relatable to her fans. What made her popular is, I think, her fans feel like, I know her. She could be a friend. She could be a girl that I went to high school with. It's one of the reasons why we forget that Taylor Swift is a billionaire with a B. It's a big reason why she gets new fans every year. Why at her concerts you will see young girls, you know, tweens, teens, and millennials, because her music has a certain digestibility about it. But at a certain point, that infantilization becomes very cringe. You know, these are not the lyrics of an adult mid-30s woman.
Yeah, so on this album, I'm glad you said that. So on this album, there's a song called Ruin the Friendship, and people were like, what is it going to be about? And it's about a guy that she knew in high school who died when, I guess, she was relatively new and upcoming. I think he was in his early 20s, so like shortly after high school. And it's like, I should have kissed you anyways, I should have done whatever. And she's actually written a different song about this guy that I think is called Bigger Than the Whole Sky, that is, I think, much more emotional and nuanced. And this one is like, it does feel like recycling. And it's also like, it's the most, I think, from what I'm remembering about the album, it's the slowest song, so it's the most ballad of all of them. And I don't like it. At one point, there's a line on it that's like, as the 50 Cent song played, should have kissed you anyways. And it's just like... Well, I don't know if she's trying to drop in popular artists or she is just trying to reference like current cultural things, because one of the other criticisms that I feel in this album that other people have had is like, she's supposed to be this amazing lyricist, right? But then she's dropping in like weird current year slang. So one of the songs is called I don't remember which one it is, but she just like says like, this isn't savage, or in a different song she says like, keeping it 100 on the land, and people are like, what 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 I actually think is interesting is that it then prompted people to be like, these lyrics are not that good, and this is how I would have rewritten it. So I want to play you one of those songs.
That lyrics mean everything, because if we just change a couple words in Eldest Daughter by Taylor Swift, I think it would have been like a much better song. Every eldest daughter was the first lamb to the slaughter, so we all dressed up as wolves just to survive. And I'm not a bad kid, just got a habit, 'cause I never wanna let you down, never wanna be left out. So many traitors promised me favors, but they're never gonna see me drown, never gonna see me down, down, down. I just think that would have fit so much better with what she was trying to go for.
Okay, I'm going to play it for you. So this is Eldest Daughter as played by Taylor Swift. Like I said, so I think that kind of change, and I can't put Taylor Swift's music in this video because obviously copyright, but someone else could listen. They could take it upon themselves to look up Eldest Daughter and compare the lyrics. I think that's interesting that people are now rewriting her lyrics to be like, I want to like your music, but I think you just missed the mark. And she missed the mark, in my opinion, by trying to be like too internet. She should release instrumental, so that's an interesting point. I would have never thought about that because I don't know anything about music. Okay, so there's a different song on the album called Opalite. And opalite is man-made opal. And in an interview, Taylor Swift is like, opal is my favorite gemstone, it's my mom's favorite gemstone, and opalite is a man-made version of it, and it's Travis Kelce's birthstone, and, you know, like, it's kind of about how... Pardon? It's not a lab-grown diamond. Oh my gosh, we should make a video on the lab-grown diamond debate one day. Put a pin in that. No, it's like she's basically saying, like, happiness can be man-made, aka, like, I'm happy with hunky football player Travis Kelce. Fine, right? She references like the onyx night, and then it was opalite. And that gave way to this criticism.
This is what onyx looks like, and this is what opalite looks like. So which one is it? Is Taylor Swift this lyrical genius that has so many layers to all of the music that she writes, and she does it intentionally, or isn't she? So perhaps you can ignore it when she said she's not a bad bitch, and this isn't savage, and she's not a smooth operator. All of these things have racial tones. Smooth operator, very famous song by Sade. Bad bitch and savage. You know, these are words that black women use to, like, guess ourselves up. And she's saying she's none of these things. So perhaps you can just be like, oh, it's just a coincidence. But then when she talks about onyx and opalite, onyx is black. Opalite is white. This is very intentional. And all because she perhaps feels insecure that her partner dated black women? Girl, you didn't even need to do that. But the most awkward thing about all of this is opalite is synthetic. It's fake. Did she just read herself? That is savage. Perhaps she is a bad bitch after all.
Obviously, there is now the, and I thought this might be coming for a while, the Taylor Swift is racist criticism, because Travis Kelce previously dated, I guess, a black girl. I just want to be clear on the record. I do not think that that song is like race related at all. I think she was talking about, you know, nighttime, which is a trope. She does this in a lot of her music. She has a whole album called Midnights. You know, onyx is black, but, you know, so is the sky when it's dark. And then opalite, brighter, lighter stone. Like, it's not that deep. But people just don't like Taylor Swift. Fine. I know you don't really like her. Like, totally fine. But, like, this seems like a bridge too far, yes? To be like, racism because you're now engaged to a white man who previously dated a black girl. Like, maybe Taylor Swift played RuneScape as a kid. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just not that deep, but she's being, like, called racist or insecure around black women, which seems like a little crazy to me, you know? Like, it's a bad album. It's not that good. The songs are not that great, but I don't think it's her outcoming as a racist. Do you? Okay. Yeah, everyone let me know in the comments if you think that this is Taylor Swift's outing as a racist person. Because the amount of political, from the left-wing criticism of this album is mind-boggling. I could probably put together an hour-long stitch of just back to back to back to back to back. Taylor Swift is now too right-wing and bad. Okay, thank you for asking. So there's kind of a couple prongs to this. It's that she put out a song called Cancelled that people thought was about Blake Lively, who's like in a lawsuit, and said she was gonna, like, Taylor Swift would defend her or whatever. But then, which I think that it doesn't matter who about, it seems logical that, like, that's maybe who she's talking about. She's apparently the godmother to Blake Lively's kids. But people are saying actually it's about Brittany Mahomes. Do you know who that is? Okay, Brittany Mahomes is the wife of Patrick Mahomes, who is some sort of football position on the Chiefs, and is like good friends with Travis Kelce. And a couple months ago, Brittany Mahomes liked a pro-Trump Instagram thing, and then people were like being mean to her about it, and then Trump was like, "I love that Brittany Mahomes. She's a nice girl," or whatever. That's true. I think he did. I'll have to, if I can find that, I'll post it here. I never know if that stuff is like AI generated anymore or not. He has weighed in on Taylor Swift's love life in the past. But anyways, so people are like, she's friends with MAGA supporters. Also, they think some of the songs on this album where she's literally saying like, I want to have children with Travis Kelce is pro-natalist, which is apparently inherently has to always be bad and MAGA and conservative. As you know, I am very open to a pro-natalist revival in America, so I'm just fingers crossed that that's true. So let me play you some of the emerging political criticism of Taylor Swift.
Was Taylor Swift's most conservative album ever. Disclaimers are on the screen now. Pause to read. Please look over these before you come into my comments spewing bean soup, as I will be wielding the block button. Especially for anyone pro-Cheeto man, don't waste your time and mine by leaving a comment. Number 1 is, of course, the enormous display of wealth. This isn't limited to the mentions of Gucci and Balenciaga, although I do think those are incredibly tone deaf. Even the focus on buying a house in a cul-de-sac with a basketball hoop is kind of insensitive when people are really struggling to buy homes right now. And that brings me to number 2. There's nothing to balance out the displays of wealth. No acknowledgement of people's reality or empathy for her fans. When I mentioned this in my last video, I got a lot of comments from people saying, I wouldn't want to listen to a song about the collapsing economy. She's not qualified to write that because she's not poor, she's very rich. To that I say, think about folklore. We have not even achieved that basic level of empathy. We have in fact received something that is very insensitive. The world she built flouts our problems and is not something we can escape into because of that. It's probably the least female-centric album she's ever put out. Yes, it revolves around her new relationship, but when you compare it to other albums that revolve around relationships like Lover, you still have Soon You'll Get Better about her mom. You still have Me, a celebration of herself. There's nothing here that acknowledges what made the Eras Tour so powerful, the economies that were changed because of women. Instead, we have an influx of the fact that she went from having very complex, thoughtful songs about down to simply writing about and size comparison shows a regression. Who else do we know that ignores all other pieces and focuses only on mature takes on, like you see in False God and Guilty as Sin, require the knowledge that human is natural, that it is okay to express yourself. The fact that she is using titillating language, very simplified language, expressing an immaturity when it comes to that is an extension of purity culture. I will continue to maintain that although she did not intend to create pro-natalist propaganda, that is in essence what she created. While she was expressing her personal feelings toward Travis, as a brand within the cultural context, she put out a message that a successful businesswoman wants to settle down in a cul-de-sac with a basketball hoop and have the giggle of kids. On its own, that's not an issue, but there's no balance on the album. When we had Paper Rings, we also had The Man.
Okay, I can't play this girl's whole video just because like it would get so long and boring. But I think the key takeaways here are they're mad because Taylor Swift is wealthy and therefore she is not relatable. Also, she apparently owes them a world to escape into while also being relatable. Seems like an impossible task. And then also that she's not hitting the correct political tones. So, you know, this creator mentions that it's okay if she wants to talk about her relationship, but it should be centered more like her other albums, and she should be talking more about herself. Basically, like, she should be more feminist. I think it's interesting if they're picking up on a tone difference. Maybe that's a sign that this relationship with Travis Kelce really is different from others, and she doesn't feel the need to prove that she's a feminist because she's happy as she is, whatever that looks like for her. Obviously, there's the criticism about, like, well, some people can't afford to buy houses, Taylor Swift. How dare you reference a house in a cul-de-sac? Like, that's not just like a typical American dream standard. It's overall, like, to me, reading completely hysterical. And that's, you know, before we get into the she hangs out with MAGA supporter criticisms. But it seems like an impossible standard for her to hit. She's not feminist enough, and she's allowed to talk about her relationship, but she can't talk about it too much. And she's allowed to say she wants to have kids, but she can't act like that's like something everyone would want to do, which it just seems like she should be like, goodbye fans, you're all the worst. But the political derangement over her album just continued to grow. I'm gonna play you one more, and then I'm gonna move on to some closing thoughts here.
Album, and not because of the style or the content. This is no shade if you are loving the album, if you're being inspired by it. I absolutely love that, and I love that for you, and I'm so happy for you. It's more just like my uncomfortableness with Taylor Swift herself, which is kind of sad to say because I feel like I've been a Swiftie for a long time. I have given her a lot of grace. I've excused a lot of kind of problematic behaviors. And I'm kind of at the point where I'm a little bit done. It's made me really uncomfortable that hasn't said anything about MAGA, about Gaza, about Trump, about like any of the really terrible things that are happening right now. It really seems like she has shifted and is just like aligning herself with more conservative people, and whether that means her ideology has changed or she's just scared to speak out in front of those conservative people, I don't know. A lot of her songs, and on this album too, are kind of dissy, are speaking about double standards in the industry and how hard it is to be a woman in the industry. So she's very aware of the patriarchy and she's aware of systems of oppression, but it seems like she's only comfortable speaking about that one. But she doesn't acknowledge the other aspects of show industry that work in her favor. She doesn't like address the privilege in her industry. She doesn't address like how her industry is being affected by ICE and by censorship and other things. She ignores all of that. And it's really hard to listen to a song about how she loves all of her canceled friends when some of her canceled friends are canceled because they're MAGA loving Trump supporters. That is hard for me to listen to right now in this moment.
I think that's true. I think that society has shifted in some ways and she stayed the same, which is to say, when she started adding political hints to her music several albums ago, I actually thought that was gauche and weird and didn't fit with her. Like, she's just the pop star. That's all she needs to be. And you and I talk about this from time to time, like, there is art for art's sake, and it shouldn't be like so obvious all the time what your theological or political or whatever point you're trying to make. Like, let it be reflected in the art. And that video is an example of the criticisms I started to see, which is like, well, she hasn't said anything about Palestine. She hasn't said anything about the ICE deportations. She's not condemning Trump. In what world did these people think an album titled The Life of a Showgirl was suddenly going to be some like huge political manifesto? Yes, I think they are mad it's not more political, which to me is actually, it's evidence maybe that they're falling out of love with her, which fine, let them, it's okay. She made her money, like she's good. She's literally a billionaire. It's fine, I guess. Or the other thing that I was thinking was like, maybe people have forgotten that art and culture exists for its own thing. And I know someone out there is like, Taylor Swift is barely music, it's horrible, it's pop, whatever. But it's what a lot of people listen to when they are not wanting to listen to the news or you know, politics or whatever. Like, for a lot of people, this is something they consume for enjoyment. And maybe we should just let it be that way. And it was the political criticisms like that made me start being like, maybe I should stream this album more. I don't even like it, but if this is her turning away from politics, I want to endorse this behavior. Not because I don't think people should talk about politics, but because like there should be other things in life than just news and politics all the time. And to your point, you're saying the world has changed. I have heard more and more from progressive people that everything is political all the time, and so you have to always read the political context into everything. It's critical theory and also poison. Like, you will destroy your soul living that way. That's my personal opinion on it. So again, I feel like I went from being like, I don't even like this album music, I don't think it's that good, to being like, but if it's coming to represent something bigger and meta about being allowed to be friends with people who other people don't like and not being forced to make political statements all the time, maybe I do like this album. And again, this is an album where she's like referencing her relationship with Travis Kelce in all kinds of ways. I don't think it's that deep, but I think it's interesting that the backlash has made it that deep. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think you're right. Right, and like maybe that's the fallout. They wanted her to say like, and my wedding date is this day, and like give them more about her personal life. And so because she didn't, they're punishing her by being like, well, you didn't say enough of the correct stuff. Yeah, I am wrong for wanting to buy a house and have children. What if she had doubled down and she was like, I am super wealthy and can do whatever I want? Yeah, I mean, that is kind of what rappers do. It's interesting. I'm going to give you, so we're recording this about a week after the album came out. So I've been collecting the criticisms for you and I've queued it down to, I think, 4 or 5. But I do think we should give maybe Taylor Swift a chance to weigh in. So 3 days after this album came out, she did an interview with someone and talked a little about basically saying like, I think people are misunderstanding what I was trying to do with the lyrics. I think the lyrics were not that good, and this is a spin. But here's what she had to say.
Sometimes I'll use specific vernacular to be satirical. Like the entire first verse of Eldest Daughter is somebody trying to figure out how to say things that they've read on the internet, whether it be like apathy is hot or memes and trolling. And how do I keep up with how we're supposed to talk in order to describe how much we don't care when really we all care about something, right? So then you go to the pre-chorus and I go more into my own voice of I've been afflicted by a terminal uniqueness. I've been dying just from trying to seem cool. That's the so that's the kind of flip of every way in which I was speaking in this entire first verse was me trying to assimilate to the way culture tells us to be, which is like weird because like honestly, I feel like going back to the idea of a showgirl, they are tough in a way that's actually kind of old school tough, where they're going to smile on the outside and they might have a storm going on in their life.
I couldn't tell, like, if that was your intention and your listeners couldn't pick up on it, then you missed, right? It's still a miss. I couldn't tell totally from that. I didn't watch the whole interview, but I've watched some clips of it, and like that was the one that stood out to me. Whether it's like PR spin or if it's her being like, okay, let me decode it for you because this is what I was trying to do. You believe it? Yeah. I think it's, I wonder if she did a bunch of interviews afterwards. She went on like late night shows and stuff. And I wonder if she was expecting it to be a more victorious tour, which she's gotten to do several times. She released an album and it's like, yes, it's great and everyone loves it. But maybe it's good that she's like having to defend her art and be like, well, this is why I did it this way and this is what I like about it and whatever else. Like, I can't say. I think the backlash to it is sort of getting out of hand, which feels typical of like this day and age, right? Yeah. If you don't like the music, if you think the lyrics are too racy or they're not good enough or they're too like sexually explicit, like totally fine. Like live your life. If you think that she's an out-of-touch billionaire, okay, yeah. If you think that she's trapped in Arrested Development because she got famous young and doesn't have a ton of life experience outside this show bubble, like, okay, true, good times. But I just, again, did you expect her to make some sort of intense political comment in these lyrics? That's out of touch. That's ridiculous. You think, right? And also, again, do you want her to be relatable? Do you want her to give you an escape? You're kind of being ridiculous. Anyways, that's kind of all I have to say on this. It's getting kind of long. Do you feel like you're better prepared to go into the world and talk about the life of a showgirl now? Okay, well, hopefully this video helps someone while they try to relate to their teen daughter or talk about the nuanced political takes of Taylor Swift's album called The Life of a Showgirl. Thanks you guys for watching. If you'd like my husband to make another off-camera appearance, let me know. Let me know what you think of this album and just generally what you take of the hysteria with it. I had a good time. And if you don't like Taylor Swift, maybe you are now armed and prepared with arguments to tell people why she's bad. Bye.